Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast today with Jacob Maggerdan.
Dalton Phillips.
And we're looking at a fun week of recaps here. Of course, we had some pretty big upsets this week. Another pretty wild week of college football that we really didn't expect coming into it. But again, this season has just been giving us gifts over and over and over with how many good games we've had each week. And it's just another wild college football season. And with the 12-team playoff, it's the perfect season to have that because there is really no dominant football teams. Maybe you could argue Georgia, Oregon, and other than that, we haven't seen pure dominance from really anybody. And so it's a pretty good year to see the 12-team playoff become a thing. We also had like interesting things with with Heisman candidates as well. Me and Dalton will probably end up discussing that in this week's Pick'em. Also may look at having a special guest on that for the Pick'em as well. But the Heisman list is definitely getting interesting at this point. We've had a couple weeks where Genty hasn't been like unbelievable, but he's still been really good, over 130 yards in both games. And then of course quarterbacks all over the place are now definitely throwing their name in the hat to be a Heisman candidate, especially the kid up at Oregon. Um, but to just dive into this week's games, this is a fun one that we didn't talk about that was awesome. And it was really a great game, and it decided a lot of things in this conference. It's opened the door for a lot of teams in the conference. Kansas State takes an L to Houston, who at the beginning of the year looked like a terrible football team, but has really turned around and started playing pretty good football as of recently. But Kansas State, really, I think that it was just the inability to run the ball that cost them this one. And it's something that they've relied on so heavily all year. But when your quarterback, who's one of the better rushers in the country, only gets 18 yards because of the pressure he was receiving while trying to pass, and he makes the mistakes in the passing game, which he hadn't done a lot of because they've kept him out of situations where he had to make great plays with his arm because he just isn't a developed passer yet. And this game, when they had a lead going into the fourth quarter, they couldn't hold on to it. But the inability to run the ball cost them this game. You look at the other side, of course, Houston goes 12 for 12 passing the ball. But the story really is their defense and just that slight advantage rushing the ball because they didn't make mistakes, and that's what won it for them. Their defense was able to force turnovers, and they don't have two picks from the quarterback. He goes a perfect game, and so those mistakes were avoided, which just gave Houston the opportunities that ended up winning them this game. Again, I don't think Houston was that great of a football team, and I don't think they really are that great of a team coming out of this one. But Kansas State just continued to shoot themselves in the foot with mistakes, and also, again, you can't rely on only being able to run the ball. And then this was a game where they needed that and didn't have it.
The reason they didn't win this game, look at their rushing stats. I
Yeah,
mean,
purely.
DJ Giddens, I've talked about him all year. He's one of the better running backs in the country, and I mean that's not a good game for him at all. And also Avery Johnson, we've talked about it again. One of the best rushing quarterbacks in the country, and I mean that's just not good. You can't do that as a rush heavy team.
Next game here to dive into our picks that we made for the week. Pretty rough week for the both of us. Dalton did a little bit better than me with some of the upset picks he made, but just all around, just another crazy week. So the picks were they were hard to make this week. Ole Miss looks phenomenal in this game. This looks like the team that can make the playoffs, and if they hadn't already had those two losses, they would be sitting really pretty and looking to make the playoffs. I mean, just give them one of those games back, maybe the Kentucky game, and this team looks like a great football team. 63 points on an Arkansas team that has held many good SEC schools to low scoring games. They really truly dominated this football game. As you can tell, Taylor Green in this game, not great football, and Malachi Singleton ends up stepping in and playing. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this was injury based or if it really was just Green struggling in this game, but I don't think the stats look that bad for him. I'm assuming it had to do something with his knee, which he struggled with since the Tennessee game. This was rough. I mean, you can't if you're Arkansas, you can't do nothing in the rushing attack. I mean, they did nothing. They have a multitude of guys getting carries. Green not doing well at all in his rushing attack. Braylon Russell, to me, still why is he only got 4 carries? Now he didn't do good in the carries he received. But again, I would have that guy running all the time. I mean, he's a freak. You saw what he did in the Tennessee game. I mean, that guy showed he can be a freak in college football. He's fast and he's huge. So to me, they're not using him enough. And then, of course, you see a name in Jaquindon Jackson that's not on the paper. The guy didn't play. So this was rough. Ole Miss dominates this football game. Jackson Dart throws for 515 yards and 6 touchdowns. Ridiculous. Again, does it without his lead receiver. He's not playing still injured. And he just goes to Jordan Watkins and Caden Lee. And Watkins has This is one of the greatest college football stat lines I've looked at.
Yeah, yeah,
Eight
that's
for
insane.
254 and 5 touchdowns. I mean, good gosh, that is unbelievable. That is ridiculous football. And then on the other side, of course, we've talked about Andrew Armstrong, how great he is as a player this year, still sitting with the one touchdown. I mean, each week he's going for 100 yards. He just never finds the end zone. And then Luke Haas, a guy that is a really good tight end, he gets the touchdown for Arkansas in the passing game. But again, Arkansas didn't get much going in this game. And Ole Miss just purely dominated this football game. They were very, very good offensively and truthfully defensively until a little bit later in the game when they had pretty much let their foot off the gas. Dalton, anything you want to add?
Yeah, this Arkansas team surprised me. I mean, they couldn't run the ball, and that's what I've said that this Arkansas team can run the ball really good. And like, I mean, this Ole Miss defense is not that good. I don't understand what happened there. I understand why they lost the game because you look at Mr. Jackson Dart's stat line. I mean, that's hard to compete with, even if you are running the ball really good. It's hard to compete with that. But I mean, kind of surprised me here. I picked Arkansas, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure, and I mean, I was just expecting a lot closer game than that.
Well, this was ugly too. I mean,
Yeah,
8 sacks. Ole Miss was all over the quarterbacks
yeah,
from Arkansas. If you have 8 sacks and 13 TFLs, your rushing stats are going to look horrible. I mean,
yeah,
it's impossible for them not to. And Ole Miss, like you said, the defense is not a highly touted thing and never has been with Lane Kiffin at coach. He is a purely offensive coach.
yep,
But they did make big additions this year in the portal. They had one of the best portal classes in the country. And so those additions on defense has really helped them out a lot. And that does make this Ole Miss team kind of scary if you do play them in a playoff scenario. Let's say they make it there. Their offense can score with the best of them, and their defense can show up like they did in this game.
yep.
Again, crazy, crazy stat line. Jackson Dart, unbelievable. Next game here, of course, this was the game of the week. This was very important. It held a lot of playoff potential. Rankings really mattered a lot from this game. We're going to kind of tell who is better in the Big Ten because I think Oregon has kind of proven themselves to be the best team in the Big Ten. But it was kind of who's next? Is it Penn State or is it Ohio State? And to me, Ohio State proved in this game they can win in a sloppy football game. They made a lot of mistakes in this game. It was not a perfect game. They didn't play a perfect football game by any means. And Will Howard, after the game, if you listen to his interview, he talked about his play for himself. He said, I didn't play my best game at all, and my guys had my back. He said, yeah, we didn't get the rushing attack going last week, but my guys picked me up this week. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, very good games from these guys. The offensive line, they are playing without their starting left and right tackles. You know how hard that is in football. As a lineman ourselves,
Yeah.
both of us know if you don't have the guys, the continuity of the team that has worked together all year, when those two guys disappear, it is extremely
Yeah.
difficult to have all the guys working together. And it's been very evident in the way that Ohio State's played the last 2 weeks. Again, not being able to run the ball at all last week. And then this week, constant pressure on Will Howard. Now, again, he had a pretty solid game. He hated on his own game, but I don't think that's not a bad football game. Now, did he play his best? No. But again, this is good football without your starting left and right tackles. On the other side for Penn State, opportunities. They were presenting themselves left and right, and they never capitalized. They had 3 red zone trips, 0 points. They did not score in the red zone. They threw a pick before halftime. They went and on the 5 yard line, never threw the ball to Tyler Warren one time at the end of the game on 4 straight plays, which that is your guy. He's your leading rusher, and he's only got 4 receptions, but he has been your leading receiver all year. How has that guy not touched the ball when the game is on the line? I I just think Penn State has shot themselves in the foot one too many times in games like this. They do this all the time where they're so close and just can't ever get over the edge when it comes to winning these big time football games. Now, you could say the same about Ryan Day at Ohio State. He has struggled big time in top five matchups. That's been a really bad thing for him. He's not been able to win them. Maybe this is the win that gets him going at Ohio State because a lot of people called for his job when he blew those kinds of games over the last 3 or 4 years. Same goes for Penn State. James Franklin is now, I don't think he should ever be on the hot seat. James Franklin has done so much for Penn State as a program and creates a winning culture in most scenarios. Now, he has had trouble in games like this, so maybe that's what they're calling for him. But Penn State fans, you're crazy to complain about going 10-2 and 11-1 all the time. So
Yeah.
just because you can't win against Ohio State every year, just chill out a little bit. I mean, I would love to be able to complain about going 10-2. I mean, that would be great. I mean, as a Tennessee fan,
Yeah.
you're in a
We're
great era
happy.
right
Hey,
now.
I'm content with losing 2 games
Yeah,
in a year. I'm content.
exactly.
I'm like, man, this is the best season we're gonna have in
Yeah,
5 years. I mean, it just happens.
just ridiculous to complain about it. Dalton, if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, if you look at Penn State, I mean, they couldn't get the rushing attack going either. I mean, I've said it multiple times. It's hard to win a ball game if you can't run the ball, and especially in a big game like that. And Penn State, that's identity is they run the ball quite a bit,
Yeah.
and it helps out Drew Aller a little bit also because I mean, Drew Aller didn't rise to the occasion here, and I mean, it's obvious. I mean, he didn't throw any touchdown passes, and I mean, you got to be able to look to your running back in that situation. They really did. Kitron Allen, I talked about him. I mean, he's only averaging in that game 2.3 yards a carry. That's not good enough to win a ball game for you. And put Tyler Warren in the backfield, and look what happened. The man can do whatever he wants to with the ball. He's one of the best athletes in college football, and he shows it.
Yeah,
Let him make more plays. I mean, he does. He does what he does.
yeah, he's a
Let him
freak,
keep
man.
doing
I
it.
mean, you literally can space him out at wide out. You can put him at tight end. You can put him in the slot. You can put him in the backfield. You can put him at center. This
Yeah,
guy is unbelievable. I mean, he really is. He's a versatile player that does something that really no other college football player does on the offensive side of the ball. He does everything. He
yeah,
literally is their source. Again, this game really important in the conference outlook. Now you're looking at Ohio State is back in the favorable category that if they can beat Indiana, they will play Oregon again, and it'll be at a neutral field. Last time it was at Oregon, they lost by 1 point. You would think that means on a neutral field they would be favored.
yeah,
Um, Again, that Indiana game looms very large. That game will matter, and it might really honestly, it could be Indiana's greatest football season ever if they win that
yeah.
game. So that game looms very large, and again, I think Penn State is fine. They're going to make the playoffs. I think that loss doesn't hurt them that much. You're looking at again an Ohio State team that will end up being a top 10 team, even with an Indiana loss, which is a team that's now in the top 10. So I think the top four of the Big Ten are really set. I don't think those teams are going to miss the playoffs, and they are really quality football teams. And again, Aller plays better, they have a chance, and he played a pretty decent football game at times, but bad at times. And that's not the best you can get out of them. And you only lost
Yeah.
by 7 to a really good football team. So again, I think they're okay. I expect Penn State and Ohio State to be fine coming to playoff time. Next game here, Minnesota goes on the road and truly dominates this football game. They didn't win by a ton of points, but they looked like the better football team for most of this game. They held a lead going into the second half. They took a quick lead with a 3-point field goal, of course. And from then on out, it was just defense. Both teams now, again, that happens a lot in these types of games. A lot of these games are going to be decided by who plays better defense down the stretch. Minnesota gets it done. They only allow 7 points in the
Yep.
second half. And I mean, again, Darius, he's their best player.
He
And
is.
Darius, 22 for 131 and a touchdown, dominates this football game, controls time, and possession is the key in Big Ten football. Most of the time, I mean, look at the game we just talked about. What team ran the ball well? The team that won. What team ran the ball well here? And it's really not that Illinois ran the ball terribly. I mean, Josh McCray had a great game, and he only had 7 carries. But again, your quarterback goes 10 for 12. Again, that's also a lot of pressure on him. And Minnesota has looked far, far better than they have. I mean,
Yeah.
you would have never told me 5 games ago that Minnesota would be sitting at 6-3 and have a win over a ranked Illinois team. Ever.
Yep.
This Minnesota team looked bad for 3 weeks. So a lot of things that's happened here are very positive for them in the program. Don't anything you want to add?
No, Darius, he's our best player, and look what he did. I mean, Minnesota. This Minnesota team that impressed me. I mean, being able to run the ball here, and control the clock. I mean, that's how I like watching football being done, and they did it right. And I mean, Illinois didn't play bad. It's just the fact of like, and this kind of it's a who gets the ball has the ball longer, and who doesn't turn the ball over, and I mean, who can keep the ball. That's
Yeah.
the most important part in this game.
Yeah, again, a game of possessions here. And Brosmer plays pretty good football. Altmaier plays pretty good football. Honestly, the stats are very comparable.
Yep.
Looking at quarterback play, and really the difference is Darius Taylor plays really well, and the other side for Illinois, they don't have the backs all going. Again, we talked about this as a three-back system. So when you have one of the three backs rolling in Josh
Yep.
McCray, and then we don't even see one of the backs we spoke about, and then Khalil Valentine ends up back on here, a guy that we talked about at the beginning of the year. But again, just didn't get it all going. And they did well in the passing game to the guys that usually are their playmakers in Pat Bryant, Zachariah Franklin. Here's the difference. Again, you mentioned
Yep.
possession, you mentioned how important it is. Altmaier has 2 fumbles. Again, that's off of pressures. So the defense wins you the game, and this Minnesota defense is obviously the forefront of how they've won games. And we'll see how this handles for the rest of the year. Again, they're not completely out of conference. Now, they're not going to win the conference. It's pretty much impossible at this point. But you're looking at Minnesota probably getting a pretty good bowl game, and we'll see how it turns out the rest of the year. Next game here, of course, this was very important in the conference as the SEC is just keeps rolling on, and these games every week seem to be very close. All the conference games are relatively close. Again, we saw the Ole Miss Arkansas blowout, but a lot of these games this week were good football games. Georgia, they played really poorly in the first half, honestly. It was Carson Beck again struggling. This guy's different than the guy that played last year. He's struggled a lot this year with his decision making, a lot of interceptions, a lot of very, very bad decisions. But it didn't end up costing them the situation because Florida, again, I don't think they're a great football team. I mean, when your leading passer has 66 passing yards and goes 7 for 22. Now, obviously, the DJ Lagway injury is the storyline here because when Lagway was in there, they weren't horrible. Now, Lagway is, again, he's not an elite passer, but he is a good rusher. He brings a dynamic to the game that at least if the passing game isn't working, he can roll out and make some plays with his feet. He goes down pretty early on. And Florida still had a lead at halftime. They were up 13-6. They looked like they really had a hold in this game. And it was because Beck had 2 picks in the first half. He was making awful mistakes left and right. And ETN goes down in this game too, which is also important for the rest of the year with them. Now he was in pads, walking around the sideline, went on the field during post-game stuff and was talking to coaches and players. So I don't think he's hurt. But again, it was enough to say, let's not play him, let's play Nate Frazier, who plays really well in this game. Nate Frazier, 19 for 82 and a touchdown. Again, this guy's awesome. He's a bruiser. He's done it again and again when they need him. He can relieve ETN and come out there and be the guy. He steps on the field and it's like, we got a good rushing attack still. We don't have to worry about that falling off when we lose our guy in ETN. Now, again, I know ETN really wanted to play well here because this was his bounce back game. And for Carson Beck, this was important because the whole thing of, is this guy ever going to come back to the form he was last year? And he hasn't really shown a whole lot since that second half of the Bama game. He played good then, but the first half was so bad that it kind of overwhelmed the second half being good. And every week since, he's had multiple interceptions. So I don't think Georgia can keep holding this up and be a good football team, but I think they just keep proving me wrong because their defense is unbelievable. And again, rushing for Florida, they do well in this game. Jacoby Jackson and Jaden Baugh, both not bad football games at all. And again, that was the first half for them. They held a lot of the possession because of the interception by Beck, as well as the ability to run the ball. Quarterback goes down. Aiden Warner comes in. That guy's not great. He's not that good at all, honestly. And it was just downhill from there. Georgia takes over in the second half. They ended up dominating the second half, 28-7. That was the kind of team that I say is the top team in the country, or up there with Oregon, of course. Looking at receiving for Georgia, Arian Smith, Dominic Lovett, Dylan Bell, they have so many guys that can make plays each and every week. Lawson Lucky has been awesome at tight end. Oscar Delp. Then, of course, they have Ben Urosek, who's another phenomenal tight end. They also have a 5-star top tight end in the country committed to come next year. So they will continue to replenish the tight end position each and every year with just more and more and more talent. That's the position they dominate in college football. On top of that, they have some pretty good backs that have also helped out in the passing game. Cash Jones does a great job in the receiving game. He's also, very dynamic in that part of the game. He really doesn't come in a lot on rushing attack. He comes in more on those wheel routes and screens and short routes to the outside. Georgia's defense is phenomenal. I think that's definitely the thing that will win them a championship if that's what they do at the end of the year. And Dalton, if you have anything else you want to add to this was
Yeah, I'm excited to watch Tennessee play against this Georgia team because this Georgia team's scary, but Carson Beck playing like that, I mean, Tennessee's got a chance, and we're both really slow in the first half, and I'm hoping that benefits us a lot. But it's the fact of that Georgia is so good in the second half that I don't know if there's any team in college football that can keep up with that second half team. This Florida team, we struggled with Florida. I mean, we did, and the game scared me. And I was watching this. I was keeping up with the score on this one, and I was like, "Man, Florida's keeping it close." I'm like, maybe they can somehow. And then I'm like, there comes Georgia in the second half, and just boom, 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 touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And I mean,
yeah.
you can't do anything about that because that's what they're going to do. And it's like their defense is just, it's like a Georgia defense is what it is. I mean, Kirby just knows how to. He's very smart with what he does on defense.
You could argue schematically he's one of the best
Yeah.
to do it in the last 10, 15 years. He knows what
Yep.
he's doing defensively. He learned from the mastermind of it. So again, I think Georgia's great. They will keep winning, especially because their defense is unbelievable. Next game here, this was a heartbreaker for Iowa State fans. The season really had gone really well to this point. They had been rolling. And then, of course, this game comes up, and Texas Tech, again, a team that had fell off a little bit because at one point they looked really good in conference play, had suffered some losses, and they upset them. They come in here, they beat them on a they beat them on a last drive of the game, and it just Iowa State didn't do enough. They had moments in this game where they could have ran away with it. Again, another team that just didn't pull away. They had a 3-point lead at the half. They ended up giving up that lead immediately going into the third quarter, got it back in the fourth with literally a minute and something left, and just couldn't stop Texas Tech. They go all the way down the field, they score, game over. I like this Iowa State team a lot, honestly. So it kind of sucked watching it because I was pulling for them because it's just an interesting team, a team that we haven't seen in the playoffs in a minute. And Rocco Becht, again, a cool story from a guy that is a freshman. He plays really good, honestly. I mean, 299, 2 touchdowns, and interception. He outplays Baron Morton on the other side. But the story is Taj Brooks being dominant for Texas Tech. He has been all year. He's been really, really good. He does well again in this game. And in Iowa State, not a bad rushing attack. I mean, Abu Sama, Carson Hansen both get going in this game. It's just not, it doesn't compete with what Taj Brooks was putting on the field. And then, of course, defensively, you're talking about a team in Iowa State that had 3 sacks, 5 TFLs. You outperformed Texas Tech. You got to the quarterback a little bit better than they did. But again, it just simple mistakes. These fumbles, they set you back. Penalties set you back. Again, even if you don't lose the fumble, most of the time it's not helping you out in any situation. It's usually you lose some yards or especially with Beck's fumble and just those mistakes costing the game. And Texas Tech, they are still a good football team. That was not a game to take lightly, even though they had lost 2 games in conference play since that start that was so hot for them. I think Iowa State can still compete in this conference for sure. Only 1 loss. They're still in it. They're still in the heat of the battle for this conference. And again, BYU has run away with that top spot now at this point. All the other teams that have been really competitive at points of the season have lost a game. And so we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the year. Dalton, anything you want to add?
I like this Iowa State team. I mean, they're good, and Rocco Beck is a stud. But you look at the other side of the ball, and Tosh Brooks is insane. I mean, he's done it all year, and he's going to keep doing it because having a running back like that is really easy, especially when your quarterback's throwing 2 interceptions. I mean, that's good to rely on a guy when your quarterback's struggling a little bit and helps you win ball games, especially in a field position battle like this one was.
Yeah, again, that last drive was really, I
Yep.
mean, it was crazy to watch for Texas Tech because just each and every time they picked up a first down or got down the field, it was like, man, they're going to pull this off. They're going to come down and upset them. And yeah, it ends the Iowa State Cinderella run. And again, they still have plenty of opportunities to make a conference championship game, win a conference championship game, make the playoffs. But the at-large bid is practically over. You would have to win that BYU game in the conference championship game and make it, which I think will be BYU. I don't know who will be the other team in there. I still have high hopes for some of the teams in the conference, but it's just rough at this point. You really, the at-large bid is dead. And so it all comes down to conference championship. Can you win it? And we'll see what they do the rest of the year. Again, I think this is a good football team, so they can definitely hang in there and compete. Next game here, this was big. ACC play, again, a conference looking to try to get 2 bids. This ruined the opportunity to get 2 bids. Clemson, if they were to go in and beat Miami at the end of the year, both Clemson and Miami would have made the playoffs. Now I don't see that happening in any way. I think that even if Clemson were to make it and beat them, I can't see them being the team that would get in. And at this point, SMU looks like the favorite to get in there against Miami because they don't have that tough of a schedule left, and they finally had a dominant football game, of course, last week, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Looking at the stats, Louisville it wasn't Tyler Shuck's show this week. It was the Isaac Brown show. I mean, this dude is phenomenal. He is unbelievable. Again, a freshman. This is a freshman standout, a freshman superstar that they'll have for at least 2 more years. And he's just so acclimated to football. He's so acclimated, ready to play college football. Every time he steps on the field, you're going to see some sort of dominant big rush. And it's the same on the other side for Clemson. They have a guy in Phil Maffa who is a monster. This dude is a beast of a human being. He's huge. He runs through tackles constantly, and he did everything he could in this game to win it. And really, the mistakes came from the Clemson just not capitalizing. They didn't capitalize. They would have drives that they would just get so close and then have to punt on like the 45-yard line. They could never, ever get down the field and compete in red zone situations. They couldn't get there. They would get up and down the field and never finish drives. On the other side for Louisville, they were doing that. They were converting on opportunities. They kicked a lot of field goals and made them. So they just controlled time of possession. They controlled the game. They controlled scoring. And overall, I don't think Clemson, they didn't play great for the first half. They were bad in the first half, honestly. They made a late game surge, and that's what makes this look even closer than it was. But we've talked about Louisville and how Louisville is a good football team. They have lost so many games by very close margins, razor thin margins. And at this point, Louisville could very easily be 7-2 or 8-1, and then they'd be talked about as a college football playoff team. Again, just blowing some games here and there and really put them out of the conversation for a conference championship appearance and a playoff appearance. I like the receivers from Louisville. Ja'Cory Brooks has been a deep threat all year. He doesn't do anything crazy in this game because, again, they didn't throw the ball a ton. This was the Isaac Brown show. On the other side for Clemson, they've always been able to go to Bryant Westco. They've been able to go to Phil Maffa. TJ Moore plays well. They have weapons that have stepped up and been pretty good this year. But again, just not enough in this game. Louisville was better. And Dalton, if you have anything to add.
This rushing attack, this is probably one of the best rushing games by both sides
Yeah.
in college football this year. And I said it. I mean, Phil Moffitt's a stud, and then Isaac Brown is a freshman that is an absolute monster too. And it's just a very entertaining game there. This Louisville team has lost a lot of close games, and this is a great football team, you could say. I mean, they just can't pull through, and they finally did against a great Clemson team too.
Yeah, Clemson had been on a roll coming into this game. Again, they had played lesser competition up to this point, but this was the best game they'd played since Georgia, and they just couldn't do it, man. I think Clemson, again, is a story of a team that just needs to use the portal, and Dabo is so diehard, like, I'm not going to do it. And he has very, very talented players. I mean, they get very talented 5 stars, 4-star players every year. So it's not like he's losing all that talent every year, and it's just hard to replenish. It's just when you can go out and get a guy that has played 4 years of college football and come in and be your left tackle or your running back or a star receiver or help you on defense at linebacker, those guys are important, and he don't go after any of them. So every other team is getting that advantage. Again, Louisville is a team that's capitalized on that. Ja'Cory Brooks is an Alabama guy who is now their best player on offense, other than Isaac Brown. And if they didn't have him, this is a different football team. I mean, he's literally won them games with his deep threat ability. So I think Clemson may start looking into that. I don't know. But these past couple years have been rough for them. They've been losing these close games against good opponents, and they don't look like a dominant football team, which they did 4 or 5 years ago. Next game here, South Carolina dominated. This was an absolute show from them. They looked like a phenomenal football team. And they've done this a couple times this year and just not been able to get the offense rolling. Again, Alabama, their defense was great. They were really, really good, but the offense was terrible. And they couldn't get anything going in that game. This game was a completely different story. Lenore Sellers plays really good football. He rushes for 100 yards. He throws for almost 250. He has a rushing touchdown. He has 2 passing touchdowns. You could argue this is Lenore Sellers' best game of his career so far as a freshman quarterback that had a lot of hope around him. This is a guy that can run really well, and in today's college football, those kinds of guys are very highly touted. He did it in this game, and so did Rocket Sanders. Rocket Sanders, 20 for 144, 2 touchdowns. Again, the dude is a beast. Me and Dalton watched that game way early back at the beginning of the season, second or third game of the year, and we talked about, man, Rocket Sanders is so fun to watch. He runs so hard. He makes plays left and right. He breaks tackles all the time. That guy had kind of disappeared for a little bit. That's why South Carolina was coming in this game 2-3 in conference play and pretty much, not pretty much, eliminated from conference championship contention. If they had played any better in some of those games earlier in the year, you're looking at maybe a 6-2 team that would be competing in the conference, but also competing in the country.
And ranked. They're definitely ranked there because, I think if you have a decent offense, you beat an Alabama team. And,
yeah. If you have Alabama and A&M on your schedule as wins, you are easily a top 15 team. And that would be at 6-2. This team is no longer sitting in a conversation of competing because of that. And I really think this team will end up getting ranked if they can win next week, and that won't matter. But you could argue them they should be ranked right now. They looked amazing.
Yep.
They looked like a ranked football team. On the other side for A&M, Marcel Reed, they stuck with him. They went with him in this game. He plays a decent football game, but nothing like what he played as he come in that game last week against LSU. Again, his passing ability, we were kind of wondering what was that going to look like. Again, not a bad football game in the air, 206 yards and a touchdown, but he also threw the pick, which, again, he's just not done a lot of college football passing. It's just not experienced in that role, and it hurt him coming into a game against a defense that is really one of the best you're going to play. Rushing the ball, Murray Daniels does really good in the game. Marcel Reed runs the ball okay. Again, some of those were pressures and sacks. Le'Veon Moss is non-existent in this football game. 2 carries, 8 yards. Again, not 100% sure if it was injury based or if he just didn't perform. I would assume injury based, but I don't know. And then looking at receiving, they didn't get their guy going in Cyrus Allen. With only 3 receptions in this game, you'd have liked to got him the ball more. He's a playmaker. Pretty much every time he touches it, he does something. Barber plays well, 7 for 80 and a touchdown. On the other side for South Carolina, again, Norris Sellers found his guy in Joshua Simon. 4 catches for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. They have not got that kind of performance out of receivers this year. Raheem Sanders, I mean, Rocket, as we call him. He looked like a rocket in this game, in the receiving game.
Yeah.
5 for 92. And one of those was a big screen. And he just made plays left and right, man. I mean, he's really fun to watch. He's an awesome player. Then you look at the defense. This is the story for South Carolina. They get to the quarterback, and then for A&M, they never touched LaNorris in the pocket. I mean, LaNorris was free of the pocket to go around, and that's why he ran for over 100 yards. They're all over Marcel Reed. They contained him well, too. They knew that this guy wants to run. Again, I said he looked like Lamar Jackson last week. You don't think that they saw that, too.
Mm-hmm.
They were expecting it, and they contained it really well. Dalton, if you anything you want to add.
Yeah, I picked this upset here. I like the South Carolina team at home. There's multiple games in this season that they should have won, and I was like thinking the whole time. I was like, maybe they'll upset these Aggies, and I picked it. I was surprised I actually got it right. And the reason they won the game was because of Rocket Sanders. I mean, he contributed what 230 yards to him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's insane. That is
44 rushing, 92 receiving. So
yeah, that's why you win a ball game. And Lenore Sellers finally showed up, and look what happens when our offense is moving smooth. There's a different ball team there.
Yeah, again, this team could have competed at one point in this season if this had been the same team earlier in the year. But again, that's out of the picture. We'll see how the SEC plays out. This now shakes things up again. It's just another wrinkle in the SEC this year. A&M now moves back to 5-1. Again, they still have massive game in the future with Texas. If they win that one, they will be in the conference championship game. But it's just, again, this is just such a weird conference at this point because the teams you expect to be at the top of the conference competing would have been Alabama in most scenarios in most years. But without Saban, it's all opened up to different teams. I mean, they don't control it, and even Georgia losing the game to Alabama, they've opened it up for other teams to compete. So it's just an interesting conference, and it's pretty fun this year. Next game here, Pittsburgh gets dominated by SMU. SMU, they look like the football team that everybody said they were this year. I had not seen this from SMU at any point this year. They just about lost to Duke and threw 3 interceptions and fumbled 3 times and just tried to give the game away and got bailed out by Duke not being able to make a field goal. So this is a completely different football team from week to week. This week, great football team. I mean, 48 points is unbelievable. Again, they only gave up the 14 in the fourth quarter because of taking some starters out and resting their guys. They absolutely dominated Pittsburgh. I mean, Holstein didn't get much going. He wasn't bad, but again, he threw 50 times for 248 yards and an interception, no touchdowns. They didn't get Desmond Reed going at all. He's been their star player all year. He does everything for them, really. I mean, he's the gadget guy, plays running back, plays receiver. They didn't get him going much in this game. And on the other side for SMU, Kevin Jennings has 17 completions for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. He also hands it to his running back and lets him do some stuff. I mean, Brashard Smith goes off in this game, 23 for 161 and 2 touchdowns. And the receiving game, again, he lost his guy in RJ Maryland, so he has to find new targets. Matthew Hibner, great game, 3 for 108. And then Keyshawn Smith, again, another 3 for 89. I mean, that's only 3 catches for both those guys, and they do great things with the ball. On the other side for Pittsburgh, Keontae Mumford had been their guy, and then Kenny Johnson also pretty good in this game. But it wasn't enough. I mean, this SMU team was absolutely dominant. Their defense was awesome, and I did not expect this at all. I really did. I thought Pittsburgh was a better football team. SMU proved to me that they are very good and can compete for this conference. Don't anything you want to add?
This SMU team surprised me here. That putting 48 points against this Pitt defense is impressive because, I mean, this Pitt defense was really good the week before against the Syracuse passing attack. And, I mean, had 4 or 5 interceptions that game?
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. I mean, that 48 points is no joke. And that's a good game for them because I talked a little smack on them earlier, not for having a baby schedule. And I know you have too in the past.
Oh, yeah.
because I mean, but that Penn team's no joke, and that's a really really good win for them.
Yeah. Well, they hadn't played either Clemson or Miami, and they don't
Yeah,
play Clemson or Miami. They had actually drawn the Florida State game, and that game ended up being a joke.
yeah,
So, to this point, they hadn't played anybody. And Pittsburgh was an undefeated team coming into this game that had been getting kind of disrespected in the country. SMU proved a lot in this game, and now they've jumped up into the top 15 in the rankings. And they look like a team that could go to that conference championship game and beat Miami, and then those two teams would make it. Because I think
yeah.
Miami is pretty safe in the rest of the regular season. I think they will make the conference championship game undefeated. So a loss won't kick them out of the playoffs. And this SMU team, they look good. They look really good. Next game here, of course, Syracuse, the JMA Wireless Dome. It is a house of horrors. Syracuse has been a place for us that we cannot go and win, and it just seemed cursed when I look at the report and it says your quarterback and your running back are not playing today. And it's like, I didn't even expect to win this game when that happened. I didn't really know what to expect out of Colin Schlee. This is a guy that didn't play a ton of football at a high level in the FBS. He played at UCLA, but before that, he was at Kent State, who me and you both know is the clown of college football. So we didn't know what to expect out of this guy. I really didn't. I knew he was an elite rusher, had 180 attempts in his career, and had ran for over 1,200 yards. Very elite rushing quarterback. But the passing ability, questionable. 58% completion percentage guy, throwing for less than 3,000 yards in his entire career. So I was like, okay, it's over. We're going to lose. This sucks because the season had finally started looking good. We'd won three straight. We lose our guy. Then on top of that, you don't have a top five player in the country in Bashal Tootin. Just unable to go. Can't go. And the injury sucks because it come in a game where we were winning and weren't going to lose, and he gets tackled on a weird play, ankle hurt. He's already dealt with the knee this year, so it's on the same leg. It just killer. I mean, you just can't go in here without your two best players and win, and they had this game in the bag and could have won. Again, mistakes by the team, very unfortunate. Defense did not play a good second half. That's just the open and honest truth, and that is the game. That was the difference. Again, the ability to win the game was there. We gave up 5 touchdowns on the last 6 drives. That is what lost you the game. I mean, you can't expect more out of Jeremiah Coney and Malachi Thomas in the rushing attack. They filled in phenomenally well. Your offensive line played one of the best games they've played all year. They performed very well in this game. And then Schlee played great football. I mean, he ran for 54 yards, and that's with some sacks that he took. You take those away, he was probably close to 100 on the day. And then he also passed for 206 yards and did not throw a pick. Again, the only thing that I was even worried about when I watched him play was he didn't get rid of the ball, and that's why he did take some sacks. He was I mean, every time he would roll out, he was not throwing it away. He was running, or he was throwing it down the field. So there was never the ability to throw it away. So again, a guy that just didn't have the experience at the high FBS level. On the other side for Syracuse, Kyle McCord, we picked him off. Really awesome interception by Monsieur Delane in the end zone. And we did kind of shut them down in the passing attack. This is the first game in 7 straight that he didn't go over 300 yards. But that's because of LaQuinn Allen. First game all year, they go over 100 rushing yards. LaQuinn Allen has that game on the ground, 21 carries, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. They could have done that a lot more in this game. In the first half, they tried to throw on us. We were very prepared for it. We were very well prepared, stopped them a ton, forced punts, played really well, got after Kyle McCord, and just constantly were in his face, making him make mistakes, which he has done over the last couple of weeks. And it just, again, so complicated to watch because we did have this game at one point a 21-3 lead, and just the offense stopped. They sputtered out because they started figuring out, hey, when Schlee gets out of the pocket, he's just rolling out and scrambling and making plays with his feet. They started selling out for that, making him make plays with his arm, and he got hurt in this game. That was another big thing. When he got the ankle injury, he lost all scrambling ability. And again, this is a guy that has relied heavily on his rushing ability. He couldn't run at all in the fourth quarter. I mean, once he took that shot to the ankle, it was pretty much over. The offense died, and we even had a chance at the end to punch in a touchdown. And I wish that we'd stuck with Pop Watson at that point. And again, love Colin Schlee and how he played, but he just wasn't healthy. Pop Watson come in there, and the first play was a rushing touchdown because they had to at least worry about his rushing ability. Again, this is killer. The season, of course, looking for a championship is over. And again, you still can have a great season and have an improved season. You won't reach the goal you wanted to reach, which was a 9-3 season with a conference championship appearance. But you can still go 8-4 with a win over Clemson and get a good bowl game and then go 9-4. And that is very positive for the future of the program. You will likely keep a lot of the guys around. You can look at adding transfers. So don't give up on the season. That's the part that's very hard to coach here. Is yeah, you were looking great and you were looking at a playoff opportunity or a championship opportunity, and now that's gone. So don't lose all hope though, because the wins are still important. It's program building and turning around a program, which I think the program has gone in the right direction, but there's still first time coaching errors. There's still a guy that has never coached as a head coach at the college football level. He doesn't do everything correct. He doesn't manage clock well. He doesn't manage certain situations well because he just hasn't had to do that before. To me, the perfect example of a guy that has never done that is you go look at Vanderbilt. What they
Yep.
did was Clark Lee was a guy that had coached there for 3 years. They hadn't done anything with him. Again, first time head coach in a big power conference. They went out and hired Jerry Kill. He has done that, and he's done it at many locations, and he's been very successful. They bring him in. He brings Pavia with him, but he also brings, again, head coaching ability, clock management ability, and also experience. Tech doesn't have that either. We have a first-time offensive coordinator in college and a first-time defensive coordinator. So to me, those are issues that need to be addressed in the offseason. And again, I would go out and get a guy that's like a co-assistant head coach or something like that. But again, this season isn't over. Again, diving back into the stats, Stephen Gosnell's awesome. I mean, 5 for 118, had a 48-yard catch that was sick. Schlee was launching the ball to him, letting him make plays. On the other side for Syracuse, Justice Ross Simmons had one catch on the year. In this game, he goes 4 for 88 and 2 touchdowns. That's the difference. You couldn't stop a guy that really hadn't been used. And you can almost point at Syracuse and say, wow, you haven't been using your best player this year. But again, just mistakes. And unfortunately, you lose this game. And it was very winnable. It was just a game that you had an opportunity to win and just couldn't get it done. Dalton, if you have anything you want to add.
I mean, it was a good football game. Even with you're missing your probably two best offensive players
Yeah,
there.
easily two best
Yeah,
players.
and I mean, imagine if you did have them. That's what I'm thinking. Like, imagine you have Tootin there contributing. I mean, you didn't struggle in the running back
No.
position, but still. But think about what Tootin would have done. I'm going to
Yeah.
be honest.
No,
And
again, if Jeremiah Coney went 9 for 96,
yeah,
I love Jeremiah Coney. He actually looked really talented. He looked
yeah,
great in this game. This was a guy that was fourth string on this roster this year. We have a deep stall of running backs. But if he went 9 for 96, Tootin could have went maybe 20 for 250. I don't know. The guy's
20 for 250 is crazy. Now
well,
that's some shade on
me and
Mr.
you
Coney.
watched him go. Me and you watched him go
Yeah,
18.
we did. Yep.
So I'm
Yeah.
just saying that guy has that in his bag. He can do that.
Yeah.
And again, the offense was not the issue until the fourth quarter when the quarterback got injured, and they come all the way back. They soared back into this game because of mistakes, fumbles, and then injuries. And it just sucks because again, you were so close to a success that you wanted to achieve. And again, this game next week would have mattered a lot more in that scenario because again, you're looking at a potential to go play in a conference championship game, which was the overall goal for the season. So yeah, it just sucks to lose this one. Again, I think you can't just say it's over. You got to look forward and say there is still a big win. I mean, you could beat Clemson at home. We haven't done that in a minute. You beat them at home. That's still positive program building, and it looks good for recruits, which we will have a lot there. It looks good for transfers who want to keep coming in and playing for us. It also looks good for the future of just the program overall. Next game here, of course, Dalton is psyched. You can see he's got the blackout jersey on. He had to support the boys in the Halloween game, as we're calling
Yep.
it. And Tennessee, they played another rough first half. It was ugly. Their kicker sucks, and it doesn't matter in the end. But I've seen a couple things with Dalton. Me and Dalton have been sitting back and forth with jokes about they're having open kicker tryouts, like the whole coaching situation a couple weeks ago, and I think it was Arizona State's head
Yep.
coach literally said they were having open kicking tryouts. So I mean, pretty funny. Again, I don't know what's going on there. That guy is awful. He has
He's a freshman, man. I
yeah,
had to cut him a little bit. So like I see him. I'm not gonna lie. It was the Alabama game, and they were going to kick a field goal, and they roll to him on the TV screen, and you just see him there like shaking
yeah,
in his boots. I'm like, please don't let this guy kick the ball. I'm like, we will lose the game if it
yeah.
comes down to this guy because you can just tell he just was just like just
Yeah.
he wasn't ready. Like I
No,
mean, I understand.
I don't know how many he's missed
Yeah,
this year in total, but I know it's five or more. I mean, he
yeah,
missed what, three in this game?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's awful. Again, you look at that and you say, then it wouldn't have been such an awful first half. You would have had a lead at
yeah.
halftime. takeaway. So again, this game, yes, it's 28-18, but Tennessee dominated in the second half,
Hmm.
especially. They looked like a far better football team. But I will say, Brock Vandagriff going down was a big difference in this game.
Yep.
When Brock Vandagriff was in there, he was playing okay. He wasn't playing amazing football, but it was good enough to hang in there with them. And again, Tennessee really didn't get Samson going until that second half.
Second half, he doesn't run good in the first, and we took him out after he fumbled. And it's like as soon as he came back, I mean, it was just an instant like
Yeah.
game changer. And like Deshaun Bishop, I don't know why the one carry he got was he had a tough little run there. I don't know why we didn't feed him the ball more. I mean, we have two great backs because
Yeah.
Deshaun's good. I don't understand why we don't feed him the rock more because Dylan Sampson is great. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but he gets the ball almost too much.
Yeah. 27 carries.
Yeah, that's a lot. Obviously, I'm going to support him because he's doing really good. He
Yeah.
just broke the Tennessee touchdown record
Yeah.
there. And, I mean, he's doing great, but he gets the ball almost too much. And I think that takes away from their offense, not going to lie, because it's so like not Tennessee like to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. We're like the sling the rock. Then guess what? You hand it off once, and
Yeah.
then sling the rock, and you hang it off again. I mean, that's what we do.
Especially
Yeah.
with the Heupel offense.
Hypo offense. That's what I'm talking. Yeah, he kind of got it started in the second half. It was looking like when Nico gets rolling, you can see glimpse of like you see like just good offense happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's great.
He's a dynamic playmaker. Again, this is Nico's best game of this season, in my
Yep.
opinion. You look at a game where he threw the ball really well. 28 completions is awesome, especially only on 38 attempts. 292 yards, a touchdown. Didn't have the picks. Didn't have a fumble in this game from him specifically. And again, look at the stat line here. We're looking at a guy that hasn't been at the top of the board all year. He found someone else. He targeted someone else. And again, you mentioned his success in this game. Brazzell drops a wide open touchdown. I don't
It was a
remember.
beautiful ball. Best ball he's threw all year. I'm
I
not gonna
remember
lie.
now. Chaz
Yep.
Nimrod also dropped a wide open
Yep.
touchdown
He
right
did.
up the middle. I mean, it
Yep.
was he split the safety in the corner that was guarding him
Yep.
and just dropped a wide open touchdown.
It looked like
That
that
was
one ball that Jameis Winston threw that one time. I was telling my little brother that about. I looked it up. The ball that James Winston threw, I can't remember, is when he's with the Bucks. I always just think about that. He splits the two defenders. I mean, beautiful ball, and
Yeah.
just two drop balls that were touchdowns. And
Yeah.
with those two, imagine. I mean, that's a really really good game
Yeah.
there.
Again, I think Tennessee overall dominated this game.
Yep.
Now, it didn't help Kentucky to lose their starting quarterback, lose Barryon Brown to a look what pretty serious injury. He goes to the hospital. I think it had something to do with his ribs after taking a pretty big hit. But again, Tennessee's defense is very effective at getting to the quarterback, and even more effective when the guy hasn't played a lot of college football in Gavin
Yep.
Wimsatt. And they're just much better than Kentucky overall. I talked about this. We talked about this. They're a far better football team than Kentucky is. And they ended up proving it in the second half with just overall pure dominance. And again, it looks positive for them coming into the rest of the season and hopefully looking for that opportunity to make a championship game or at least get into the playoffs at the back end of the playoffs. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Again, another awesome week of college football. We are looking at a season like 2007 where this is awesome. I mean, every week is so fun. You got to tune into it. And even if the games don't look crazy, again, another week where we didn't have a ton of ranked matchups, but then the games ended up being awesome. Multiple upsets across the board. So it's just each and every week we've kind of learned to expect that. So I don't even know what will happen when we have a week that's just boring and all the favorites win. Again, very interested to see what Tuesday's rankings look like. This is the first time we'll ever see the 12-team college football ranking and see where they actually have teams sitting. It is so important to see where those teams are at because that will decide what teams can make it with an at-large bid later on in the year. On top of that, college basketball just started. Me and Dalton will look to do a first week recap very soon. Not 100% sure when we'll get that out, but again, I want to do that. Again, probably shorter videos, just talking about scores, really only talking about leading guys and stuff. Again, if you guys have any recommendations, give us those. Dalton, if you have anything you want to add, go ahead.
Go Vols, and I look forward to getting into the basketball. I love college basketball.
Yeah, I've gotten Dalton more into it this year.
Yep.
Me and him will definitely be attending a UNC game at some point. We will be definitely
Yeah.
going.
I'm going to try to get him to pull him to Knoxville to watch a game. Watch
We'll
a game
see
there.
if that happens. We'll see if that happens. Again, these are two top teams this year, so they should be fun to watch. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you have anything you want to tell us, let us know. We've enjoyed this so much, so thank you guys for watching so much, and like and subscribe, and peace, everybody.
Peace.